All righty. Greetings, class. Happy Wednesday. We are here in week 4. I got lost on those weeks for a second. Italy, we have left the Americas. We're hopping over to Europe. So get ready. Bags are packed. Hope you brought your special equipment. No, I'm just kidding. But that is what we're going to be checking into, different equipment, flavor profiles, regional cuisine within the countries as we start to explore, just as we've done so within the past 3 countries and regions that we've been exploring. Before we hop into anything, I know that there were some questions being covered previously, but anybody have any last questions regarding week 3 execution or last minute questions for that? Everybody's feeling solid? Excellent. I love it. Happy to hear that. Seen some great work so far. I've seen some improvement on knife cuts, which is great. Big improvements there. Improvements on mise en place as well. Just keep on, focusing every week to be better than your previous week. That's kind of the goal that you take with, there's an old saying, you're only as good as your last dish that you put out. Okay. So kind of use that same mentality for, all right, I did X, Y, and Z in week 3. How can I improve in week 4? Whether it's being more descriptive in your menu descriptions, really thinking about the culinary techniques that you're using, right? When we look at those techniques, one thing that I've noticed on the narrative, which is that it seems to be a trend, people are only mentioning 1 technique, maybe 2. We want to be thinking about the techniques that you use. Again, this is going to be when you are starting to apply for gigs, right? And you have an interview with a chef. Chef is going to ask you, so what techniques do you know? And if you use improper culinary terminology, or you don't even know how to actually describe it, that's going to be, you're in culinary school. You want to know how pan searing, grilling, simmering, braising, sauce cookery, emulsions. These are the things you want to be using and using those correct terms. All right. Chef, anything that you've noticed improvements or any things that you want to touch base with regarding assignments?
I think the week 3 assignment has been like a massive success. The deep frying techniques have been really, really good this term. This week. One of the things that I have noticed though is that we want to pay attention to the knife cuts that are on those recipes. While what I've seen so far is that our knife work has improved a lot. It's nice and consistent within itself, but we're not quite doing a specific knife cut. We're somewhere in between a small dice and a medium dice on some of these things. Our plantains were very specific, and we just urged you guys so much to make sure that you cut them about an inch and a quarter. And I saw a lot of just tiny little rounds. When you press them down, they didn't expand. They didn't give you that beautiful surface area. But again, the great thing is that we are nice and consistent within the stuff that you're cutting. So your onions were consistent within each other. And that's huge. That is the most important part. You just need to make sure that we can just cut it down a little bit more or cut it up a little bit more in terms of the size. Make sure that we actually follow a specific knife cut with that. But the beans this week were just absolutely beautiful. From what I've graded so far, and I've graded quite a bit today. Nobody's beans were super ruptured or anything like that. They've cooked them to perfection almost. You can see that crunchy exterior or that nice bite to them on the outside, that beautiful creaminess on the inside. So really pat yourselves on the back, guys. This has been a really, really good week. I would urge you go back and check out your week 1 assignment and now look at your week 3 assignment. I've seen just dramatic improvements in that. So just absolutely fantastic job, guys.
Definitely. Totally agree, Chef. Also on that same note, some weeks are going to be lighter in knife skills and techniques, right? This one was fairly straightforward. You plopped all of those ingredients in the pot and let it simmer away, right? We're going to start seeing more and more techniques. Each week it's going to grow and transform. And some weeks are going to be heavier and some weeks are going to be lighter. So just be sure that you're staying ahead of everything and really kind of analyzing, because the quantity of time that you're going to need to focus on certain recipes or certain weeks is going to vary each week, especially depending upon how comfortable you are or are not working with new ingredients and products. And again, just driving home, sound like a broken record, but unfortunately I have to be looking ahead, product sourcing, right? Product sourcing, reading the recipe. If it says optional, right? It's optional. Remember though, some things are going to add more flavor or less flavor. So you want to be aware of that, right? And how that's going to differentiate. If you don't increase, if you choose to opt out of certain ingredients, know that you're going to lose some body, some depth of flavor, and that's okay, but that it's going to have a different flavor profile, right? So these are just things to be aware of, and constantly looking ahead of, a couple weeks down the road and doing a big order, if needed, to get those unique ingredients. As we know, so many people live far away from certain stores where you can access, certain ingredients that are, a bit more not as common and not as commonly found at smaller grocery stores in rural areas. So that's what we want to be looking for. All right. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Yeah, I know, Chef Jerry, you're all right with that kombucha hit? Are you okay?
Rough. I'm not a fan of it, but it's so good for your stomach and your gut health. So this is the only way that I can actually have any of this like fermented stuff, because like kimchi or anything that's just like straight eating it, I can't.
You can always try to water. I've watered down kombucha to cut it a little bit. It's not as aggressive.
Maybe I'll try that next time.
Yeah. Or like mix it with some lemonade, sweeter, give some effervescence. Yeah.
All right. Should we roll right into the assignment? That seems nobody's got any questions for us today, so let's just jump right into it. So
yeah, let's do it, Chef.
And share my screen with you guys. So this week we are going to Italy. As you can see, that red, white, and green is very, very bright here in this region. A lot of fresh ingredients here as well. But let's talk about the assignment this week. So what are we doing this week? So this week, we either come to the live session or we watch the archive. For those of you that are here, thank you so much. The more engagement we have during these things, the better. Don't be afraid of asking a question while we're on the recording. It's probably a question that a lot of your peers have as well. And it's something that'll just get that information to both of the classes, essentially. If it's a question that you have, it's probably something that somebody else is wondering. For those of you lurking in the archives, hello. Thank you so much for watching this as well. Make sure that you read and understand your research material. It's very streamlined for you guys now. So it's just boom, 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 boom. All that information is there on those knowledge checks. And speaking of those, make sure you complete both of those, your knowledge and your conversion check. Make sure you understand your assignment, and as chefs that stay ahead of these things, look ahead at the future weeks. A lot of the stuff that we're using this term is things that you can buy ahead of time. It's a lot of dry goods that are going to be the stuff that that you might not be able to find. So get just a good Amazon order in, or whatever it is that you use, and you should be able to pretty much source all of these things. Get that assignment ready, submit it to us. Make sure that you submit that before Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. CST next week. And as always, if you guys need to resubmit anything, reach out to me and Chef Catherine, and we will definitely get those assignments opened up for you guys. So let us continue on here. What are we doing this week? So this week we're going to make ragu and polenta, and I do have a couple of things that I did want to cover on them. So the ragu, this is not a dish that can be rushed. It takes a lot of time to develop that beautiful flavor and the texture that we're looking for. While we're cooking with wines, beers, or spirits, it's a very important skill to understand in the industry. You don't want to just dump a whole bottle of wine and try to serve that right away. It's going to be very, very rough in terms of flavor. Allowing the alcohol just plenty of time to cook out is super important. It also gives you this beautiful reduction. Mirepoix knife cuts should be consistent and on point this week. That is going to be one of the things that both me and Chef Catherine zoom in a lot on your work, as you guys have noticed. So make sure that those knife cuts are consistent. I was talking about it right before, where we've been in between kind of like a small dice and a medium dice. Make sure that you focus in on those small dices this week. And I'll show you pictures right now of what I mean. But for the polenta, with this, you can go both ways. You can go creamy or you can do it grilled. Both of them are going to have fantastic results for this. Polenta is often sold pre-cooked, and we do want to avoid that. What you're going to see is that that's actually coming in like little packets that kind of look like this. They're obviously going to be yellow, but they're inside of like a plastic wrap and stuff. They look like a little bit of like a cheese log or something. So avoid that guy. I'll show you guys pictures of what we want to buy in this. We're going to be looking for the raw product, which is going to look very similar to grits. It's still going to have a little bit of a texture in terms of what it looks like when it's fully cooked, but it should not be gritty or grainy when you bite into it. It shouldn't feel like sand in between your teeth, essentially. Like when you went to the beach as a kid and you've got your sandwich that you brought from home and there's been sand kicking around, you take a bite out of it and you just feel that crunchiness along your cheeks, even though there shouldn't have been anything crunchy in there. Super fine grind polenta. If it's basically, these three things are the exact same thing: cornmeal, grits, and polenta. The main difference with these is just the how finely ground up it is. So super fine grind is considered polenta, a medium grind is considered cornmeal, and then a coarse grind is what you would use for grits. So all three of them, same product, just one's a lot more finer than the other. And this is kind of what we're looking for here. So this week you can go ahead and do a grilled version, which is up here. And then we have the soft version, which is down here. And these are a couple different brands that you can use, but what you're looking for is for it to look like this. You don't want it to look like this guy already. This is already the cooked version that they sell in those logs. So yeah, somebody said in the chat, Vladimir said Bob's Red Mill is a good one, and that's this one right here. And again, it can say cornmeal, it can say polenta, it might say grits. Any of these will work. The main difference is just the amount, how much it's been grinded down. So let's get into the polenta first and foremost. What are we going to need? 4 cups of water, 1 cup of polenta, some butter, some Parmesan cheese that has already been shredded, and then salt and pepper to taste. So a little bit of a straightforward here, but we do have 2 different instructions with this guy. So make sure that you're paying attention to which one you're doing. So basically you want to start off both of these the exact same way. You're going to bring your water and salt to a boil. Make sure that that water is boiling. Very, very important. And then with this here, right after, you're going to gradually stir in your polenta while whisking constantly until the mixture is smooth. I would urge you guys, add your polenta a quarter at a time, and make sure that your hand doesn't stop. You're going to have a whisk in one hand, whatever hand you want to do it with, and then you're going to have the polenta in the other. You're basically going to look like this. Nice and slow, and you do not stop for the life of you. Unless it's a medical emergency or something with one of the kids, you do not stop mixing, because what's going to happen is that it's going to clump up, and we'll be able to see those giant clumps. It's going to look like it's going to have some smoothness to it, and then you can see these giant just balls into all of it. Think of it like a clumpy gravy. That sounds gross, right? So we want to make sure that we avoid that. What we're going to do after that is, once we've got all our polenta in there and we've continuously kept whisking, you're going to reduce the heat and let it simmer until it thickens up. But it still should be nice and smooth and creamy. Very, very important step to reduce that heat. As that water level starts leaving that polenta, that stuff becomes lava, guys. You do not, for the life of you, want a polenta burn. It is the worst. It's happened to me before. That stuff just bounces like crazy. Make sure the kids are away. Make sure no pets are on the floor around you or anything like that, because if that thing just bubbles, it can really just jump all over the place. So make sure that we reduce that heat down, and we're very careful with that. At that point, once we go ahead and have that nice, smooth, creamy consistency, but a little bit thicker, we're going to stir in the butter and the Parmesan cheese. And then at that point, we're going to season to taste. Careful with your salt content, guys, as Parmesan cheeses can be different in terms of how much sodium they add. So make sure that you taste and then adjust. Never just throw in salt. Always taste, because of the Parmesan cheese. Now, for the grilling option, what you want to do is you're going to omit the butter and the cheese completely from the recipe. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way up until step 3. So same process here. If you want to make grilled polenta, you would go step 1, 2, 3 up here, and then you would go down over here. You're going to pour that cooked polenta that has already been nice and smooth, and you're going to pour it into a sheet pan and refrigerate it until it's nice and firm. I would urge you to just try to get it as smooth as possible at the top, and make sure that it's just nice and just evened out, because that's how it's going to firm up, and that's how you're going to present it. If your polenta is kind of like this, you're going to have a very thick side over here, and then you're going to have a very thin side on this side. So make sure that you just try to get it as smooth as possible at that. After that, you're going to go ahead and cut it into shapes, and here it says with a wet knife or a circle mold. Can anybody jump in and tell me why you want to wet your knife before you cut these things? Very similar to like a cake or something.
Prevent them sticking?
Yeah, so it'll prevent the sticking, and it'll prevent dragging, actually. If you try to cut it just all the way through without wetting your knife or having it nice and clean, you're going to start getting some pulling on it, and you're going to see that it's got like these little tears on it. And you want to avoid that. You want to have it just look nice and smooth. You want to make sure that every time we make a knife cut or we use our knife, that cut is exactly where we want it. We don't want to see any, we don't want it to look like a sharp kind of bit along the edges of it or anything like that, like if we're using a bread knife or something. So once you go ahead and get your shapes cut up, you're going to place them on a well-oiled grill pan or an outdoor grill, and you're just going to crank that heat up and get those beautiful just char marks on it. Remember back to week 1, when we were working with a grill outside. This week we want those beautiful char marks as well, very similar to the chicken. And then we're just going to cook it all the way through until it's heated at the center. Make sure that this guy stays there long enough to cook all the way through. Remember, this is coming straight from the refrigerator onto a grill. So it's very similar to when you're cooking meats and stuff, where you want them to come down to room temperature before you start grilling them. Otherwise, that interior is going to be cold. And then at that point, you're going to remove from the grill and you're going to serve this guy. Any questions on the polenta?
I'm gonna have to re-listen to that. That was quick.
Go ahead, ask a question if you have any. It's okay.
I don't even know what my question is. I think I heard you say something about the cheese can be already shredded, or do we shred it?
Either one works. If you can find pre-shredded Parmesan, that works as well. If you can get yourself like one of those little triangles that they sell of like the Parmigiano Reggianos, that would work even better. The flavor profile is going to be so much better if you can get one of those. But basically, whatever you can find is perfectly fine.
Okay. I'll catch up.
All right. So let us go into the ragu. So this one. I have beautiful little knives over here because this is going to be one of the key things that we're looking for in terms of knife cuts. And then on these guys as well, I've included little keys here, which are going to be very, very key steps to this assignment. So if we go back to the polenta, we have a couple of key steps here as well. Make sure that we're really paying attention during those. So let's get into it. So we're going to need olive oil, butter, onion, celery, and carrots that have been brunoise. So small knife cuts for these. And then for this, we're going to use 3/4 of a pound of ground beef and half a pound of ground pork. If you don't want to use 2 different meats, that's perfectly fine. You can just use ground beef. You can just use ground pork. If you don't eat either of those proteins, you can use ground chicken, ground turkey. Whatever works for you is perfectly fine. If you can't find them, don't worry about it. Use anything else that's ground pretty much. Salt as needed. We're going to use a white wine here. It says a Pinot Grigio, but you can really use any white wine that you have at home. It's perfectly fine. Make sure that you pour yourself a cup while you're cooking. It'll make the process a lot more fun. 3/4 of a cup of milk. And you might be wondering, milk? What's going on with that? But it adds a beautiful just depth of flavor to this. 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg, and then we're going to use a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. So for this, a lot of times we get questions whether we can substitute fresh tomatoes for canned tomatoes and stuff. I would suggest we just go with the canned version here. Those have been cooked down a lot more. Those have had the sugars in the tomato just kind of come out a little bit more, as opposed to if you start off with a raw product, which is definitely something that you can do. But the cooking process is just going to be so much longer because you have to cook out that acidity, that raw flavor from the tomato. And these guys just have a massive head start on that already. But if you want to, be my guest. But the cooking process is just going to be so much longer. And that's kind of how it goes with like any type of marinara or ragu sauce. But we're going to start off with a large pan over medium heat. We're going to add our olive oil and our butter. And then we're going to allow that to melt. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to sweat our mirepoix. Somebody jump in, tell me what sweating means.
Not
You don't
browning
want. Oh, go ahead. You just want them to kind of get soft, but not brown them. Tenderize them a little bit.
Absolutely no color. We do not want to saute these guys, just from white to translucent, like Vladimir said in the chat over there. So just sweat these guys out. Make sure that the heat is moderately just medium or low. You don't want to be super cranked up on that heat. Otherwise, you're going to start getting caramelization, and we want to avoid that. At that point, we're going to add our beef, our pork, or whatever protein we're using, and a little bit of salt to that. Using the back of the spoon, you're going to break down any large chunks and cook until the raw color leaves the meat. But again, we're not browning this here. We're just cooking this nice and slow. After that, we're going to go ahead and add our wine and then cook it down until about halfway down, until it's about halfway down evaporated. And then we're going to add our milk and our nutmeg. That's going to give you this beautiful, just creamy flavor into the product here. And again, cook that down until almost evaporated. And again, guys, a lot of time is being invested into this, guys. So take a look at this. We're going to sweat the mirepoix. We're going to cook the beef nice and slow until it's not brown, but it's cooked all the way through pretty much until the raw color leaves. We're going to add wine. We're going to wait. We're going to add milk. We're going to wait. So keep in mind the amount of time and the depth of flavor that we're developing here. We're going to add our crushed tomatoes, lower that heat, and just stir until everything is fully incorporated. Simmer very gently for a minimum of 3 to 4 hours. So this is going to be on the stovetop for a long time. This is going to have your house smelling absolutely incredible all the way throughout the day. But make sure that you're stirring occasionally to prevent scorching. This has quite a bit of sugars that develop from the onion, from the carrots. The milk can definitely scorch at the bottom of the pan here. So ensure that we're just constantly coming back. Do not set it and forget it. That's not what we do here. We want to just come back every 15, 20, 30 minutes, take a look at it, move it around a little bit, make sure that it's not sticking. Again, once you've gone ahead and just let this reduce down quite a bit, you're going to season to taste, and then you're going to serve with pasta of choice if you want. You can serve this with the polenta, use it as a lasagna sauce, whatever you want. But what we're looking for in the final product is we're not looking for this to have any more liquid in it. So we want to render all of the liquid down. When you check the bottom, once you get that spoon into the pot, you're going to move the meat to the side and you should not see any liquid. You should be able to see the bottom of the pot when you go ahead and take that picture. So it's very important. This is not a wet sauce or anything like that. It's just a very rich meat and tomato sauce. And with the knife cuts being small, what we're looking for is for them to pretty much just mix in with the meat. We shouldn't be able to see giant chunks of carrot and celery and onions, and then the meat be tiny, tiny little pieces. So very important that we really focus on those knife cuts this week. Any questions on this guy? All righty. I'm in.
Yeah, I got a question right here.
Oh, go ahead.
So for the ragu, I'm trying to think if there's a substitute we can use for the wine.
Sorry.
Yes, there definitely, you definitely can. There's a few different options. I'll actually I have a great list for substituting alcoholic beverages for non-alcoholic beverages. That ranges from substitutions for beer to liqueurs. So I will send that out. Oftentimes what you'll find is you think about what the profile of wine is, right? There are going to be notes of those grapes that are used to actually create that wine. And remember, vinegar comes from wine, right? So if you've got a nice quality white wine vinegar, not just like white distilled vinegar, but white wine vinegar or champagne vinegar, you can dilute that with a bit of water, okay? Those are gonna bring some of those fruity and floral notes that are present in both wine and vinegar, but you don't want it to be too acidic, right? Because when we drink wine, it's not like drinking vinegar, right? It's gonna be sweeter, it's gonna be more mellow. So you take a little bit of water and a nice quality white wine vinegar and dilute it, and you get this really pretty close to a good mimic there. Alternatively, you could use a stock. It's not going to add the same depth. It's not going to have those floral notes or that acidity. And you do want a touch of that acidity, right? Breaking that down. So those are some good options. Like I said, I can also share this with Chef Jerry, my list of, I found it a few blocks ago for those who choose to not cook with alcohol, and happy to supply that with everybody. So tons of great options out there.
Okay, so you're gonna send that out to everybody?
We'll post it on the class page. Just where Chef Jerry and I have been posting all of our weekly announcements, from the posters, you know, the prep list, to the articles or videos. We'll post that right in there, and Chef Jerry will put it in his class page as well.
All right, thank you, Chef. Sorry, I
My
started
pleasure.
choking on my drink and I couldn't breathe. So
Glad you're okay.
let's move on to the third part of the assignment now. There is 3 parts this week. So this week we're going to be baking, every culinary student's favorite part of these courses. So this week we're going to be making focaccia, which is a beautiful bread. Mind you that these guys are now in grams, so the measurements have changed. Make sure that we're weighing all of this stuff out. Make sure that if you have any questions on how to tare your scale or anything like that, reach out to us, let us know. We do not want a mismeasure on any of these ingredients, as it's going to change your final product quite a bit. One of the things that you're going to see up here is that it says a quarter sheet pan here. Most of us probably have cookie sheets at home, and that's going to work, but those guys are actually half sheet pans. So one thing that you can do is either double your recipe, or the way I go about it, I don't have any quarter sheet pans. Those are probably about this big. They're pretty small. I just put aluminum foil right down the middle of that guy, and it's going to make it so that you kind of create 2 separate sides onto that cookie sheet. But basically, we want this bread to be half the size of a cookie sheet, if you have those. So we're going to go with 375 grams of bread flour. We're going to use some water, some instant yeast, some salt, pretty much what we used for our French bread last term. But this week we're going to be using a lot of olive oil. We have 12.5 grams of olive oil, and then we have mixed herbs, which are optional and to taste. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to combine all of our ingredients into a bowl and just mix using a rubber spatula until the dough forms. If you have something to mix this, you can definitely go ahead and use it as well. Stand mixer. It doesn't need to be super smooth, but what you do want is it for just to be nice and uniform. You don't want to see any excess of wet spots. You don't want to see any excess of dry spots in your bowl or anything like that. Can anybody tell me what this method of making bread is called? Just combining all of your ingredients into a bowl and mixing.
Straight dough.
Straight dough.
Straight dough method. Yes, correct. That is the straight dough method. So once we go ahead and let this focaccia rest for an hour, again, guys, another hour here. So make sure that you're paying attention to the time frames here. We have a lot of time invested into this week's assignment. We're going to lightly dust our bench with flour. Notice it says lightly. You guys, I've noticed, love just spreading flour all over the place. So be very mindful with that. Just a little bit goes a long way. We don't need to be Pablo Escobaring any tables around here or anything like that. So we're going to release the dough from the bowl with the and then we're going to actually just stretch the dough out into a rectangle and fold it over into itself. So we're just going to pull it and then envelope fold. At that point, we're going to return it to the bowl and rest for another 30 minutes. Right after that, once we come back 30 minutes later, we're going to generously oil a quarter sheet pan with olive oil. Generously means just let it go. We want a lot of oil into this. And that's going to make it so that your focaccia gets this beautiful golden brown crust all the way around the outside. And that includes the side. So it's going to have these tiny little things off to the side. Make sure that you get into those as well so that the oil is just completely all over this sheet pan. Then what we're going to do is we're going to place the dough onto the sheet pan and you're just going to kind of pull on it a little bit. Pull it from the corners, kind of use your fingers to press it down and then just kind of pull on it nice and slow in opposite directions until you can cover that whole surface area. Mind you guys, the quicker you do this, the easier it's going to get. The more you start working with this dough, the tougher it's going to get, the more it's going to resist. So just try to be as gentle as possible. Make sure that every movement that you do on it just counts. Do not just start pulling it and then going the other way and then kind of messing with the dough too much. Otherwise, you're going to develop too much gluten. You're going to have to let it rest again. And now that it's completely covered in olive oil, it's going to change the product a little bit if we just let it sit there. It's going to make it just super slippery on you. So after we go ahead and have it just all over that quarter sheet pan, we've stretched it out the four corners. We're going to spread more olive oil over the top of this dough. And then we're going to let that ferment until the pan just kind of fills up. It's going to take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours here. So just be mindful of that. Again, more waiting here. But once we do go ahead and do that, where we've let our dough just kind of rise up nicely, we're going to preheat our oven to 450. And then we're going to dimple the focaccia at the top with all 10 fingers. All you're going to do is just give it a back massage. Just get in there and just press on it like this. Imagine you're playing a piano or something. Just get as many holes on there as possible. It's perfectly fine if your fingers are pressing all the way to the bottom. No big deal. You're going to bake until the top is a nice golden brown color. And then once you do go ahead and have that, you're going to release the focaccia from the pan and cool on a rack for an hour before you cut into it. So you want to make sure that we allow this plenty of time to rest up before we cut into it. It's also going to come out very, very hot. So be careful with any of that excess olive oil that's along the sides when you pull it out of the oven, as if you tilt it, that stuff is going to drip on you and it can be very, very dangerous. So some things that I wanted to show you guys very quickly is you can definitely go ahead and do designs on your focaccia. If you guys want to get creative and do something like this, you definitely can. These are from old students here. We have this guy. I wanted to show you guys what the grilled polenta looks like as well. And these are all from previous students. This is just the grilled polenta here. It's got a little bit of cheese over the top. Just nice, beautiful grill marks on this guy. And what you're looking for in your ragu is this. There is no water content coming out of this. You can see that it's just this beautiful, thick, rich, just meat and vegetable sauce. And then this guy, this person here did their polenta. They made grilled polenta here as well as the ragu over the top, some microgreens. And this one is just very simple plating, but nice and beautiful here. Just the soft polenta at the bottom, some of the ragu, and then some garnish with the cheese and some herbs over the top. We also have this one over here, which has just looks like fried polenta. And then we do have the ragu on the bottom. We can see a little bit of liquid on this one, so we want to make sure that we render out all of that liquid on these guys. And then this one has just all three of the products into this one bowl here. Nice and clean presentation, super simple, but just nice and effective here. This is perfect to go out at a restaurant. So any questions on any part of the assignment now?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, for the focaccia, it says when you let it sit in the pan and ferment, you said till it fills up the whole pan. But you said I got a cookie sheet, so just till it fills up a quarter of the pan or what, or half of the pan. My bad. Okay, so spread it out to wait. So when we spread it out in the cookie sheet, spread it to a quarter and then let it blow up to half.
So initially, when you're spreading that dough out, it's going to be very thin. What you're looking for it is to fill pretty much upwards,
Oh,
not going to grow like crazy or anything like that. But what you're looking for is for it to kind of come up, and then it should like get pretty tight in there.
okay.
My question is on the yeast. I know this is just for the good of the group. Some people may have both, but our little kit came with dried yeast. So is there a measurement if you're using dry yeast versus instant?
For this recipe, does the yeast stay the same? I have the conversion somewhere, but I'd have to look for them.
I mean, I have
Hey,
both. I was just asking for the good of the group.
You also want to remember instant yeast for dry yeast, you do need to get it going, right? As opposed to instant
With the
yeast
water.
with some lukewarm water. You don't want it cold because that bacteria is not going to want to grow. And you don't want it hot because you're just going to kill it, right? So you want tepid water. Slightly warm, a really nice, comfortable environment for that yeast to start to get active and get moving. That's going to create that the reaction that you need. Otherwise, you can have some really dead, flat breads, which is if that yeast is not activated.
I mean, I have both. I was just asking for the good of the group in case somebody needed to know.
Definitely.
you have to rehydrate both dry yeast, instant yeast, and the active one, both of them, right?
They'll take different amounts of time, and like dry yeast, you need to give it some actual time. Instant yeast is going to be a lot quicker.
Instant yeast is the one you mix with the dry ingredient, right?
In this recipe, yes.
Yes. So he's
Oh,
talking about instant versus active dry. Active dry, you have to bloom beforehand. So that's the one that you would add into your water. This one with instant, you're able to just go right into the cooking process, and mixing process, sorry.
can you give us the conversion on the yeast, because I have active dry yeast.
I would have to look for it, but yeah, I can definitely look for it and send it to Chef Catherine as well.
And I would always suggest going with the recipe to have more accuracy if possible, and seek that out. You're just going to have better success with it.
All right. Any other questions on your assignment this week? One thing I did want to throw out, guys, let's make sure that we're plating this stuff up. It's not on the photo requirements, but it is a skill that you want to practice. Once you get out into the industry, you're not going to serve pots and pans to your customers. So make sure that we put it onto a plate, make it look nice, practice those garnishing skills, and just really, I know that we're working from the comfort of our home. It is fantastic that we have that ability. But we also want to make sure that we can kind of put ourselves into those pressure situations. And that includes getting these assignments in on time. When you go out to a restaurant, when you're working out in the industry, there's a certain time frame out there. That window is 7 minutes. I remember that I can add pretty much any number on the clock plus 7, just because that number is just so ingrained. Don't know if you guys know this, but they conducted a study a couple of years back where they took the people's order at the table and they waited and saw how long before they started getting antsy because no food had come out. That time frame was 7 minutes on average. So right around when that 7 minute hits, people started like kind of looking around, seeing where the waiter is, the waitress, whoever it is. They're just kind of like, hey, like what's going on? Like, where's my food? So most restaurants, especially once you're out in the industry and you're working at like those higher end restaurants, 7 minutes is what you're shooting for. Obviously for those thicker steaks and stuff, you're going to have that exception, but that's kind of that window that you're shooting for. So we want to make sure that we are staying nice and consistent with that stuff. We're turning in our stuff on time. You guys all have jobs and stuff, and you cannot not show up on Tuesday and be like, that's fine, I'll make it up Wednesday, Thursday. That is not how. Treat this as if it was your job as well. Make sure that we have a week, get ahead of the assignment as you can. I know that we're all super busy. We got kids, we got family and all that stuff, but need to make sure we're taking this stuff seriously.
100%, chef. Totally agree. And if you think about this, right, on those same levels, same term, if you're consistently not prepared at your station in a restaurant, day after day after day, what do you think is going to happen? Find somebody who's bye. Yeah, there's the door. Good luck somewhere else, right?
You're gonna get the Chef Jerry treatment. If you don't want to be here, go home.
Yeah, you better watch out from Chef Jerry. He will kick you off the line and tell you to go home and come back when you're ready. It's no joke, right? Just like when you're a customer, right? Waiting for that food. How do you feel? You go to a restaurant because you're hungry, right? You want to eat. So constantly be thinking about that, right? Professionalism, punctuality, being prepared. This is what the future is. You're going out into the industry. There's not going to be that leniency of, well, it's okay. The customer wanted it, for dinner, but I guess customer's not going to be eating today. He'll be eating in 2 days. Right?
Yeah.
That would stink. So keep pushing, class. We are here to make you better, stronger, more effective, more professional, and get better in the kitchen. That's what we want. That is why we're pushing you. Okay? We want to see the best out of you, and we want to see you shine and push yourself and continually grow and challenge yourself to be better, faster, more accurate. And we're here to help and support you on that. So let's rock it. Any other questions regarding anything that Chef Jerry just went over regarding recipes? Nope. All right. Let us, sorry, 1 second. Sonny, can you shoot me that question in a message, and I will get back to you immediately, just because we want to keep on with this course, and I'm getting a little distracted. I'm like one of those mindsets said that I got to just go with this. So we are going to talk about Italy right now. All right. What do we think, first of all? First and foremost, I want to get the ball rolling here. When we think of Italian cuisine, what do you think about?
Pasta.
All right, we got pasta. Pizza. What else?
Bread.
Bread.
Ravioli, spaghetti.
Spaghetti, right? That would fall into pasta.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What type of sauces do we think about?
Meatballs.
Meat sauce.
Mozzarella.
Mozzarella.
Alfredo.
Wine. Yep. Tomato. Okay. Good statement there, right? Let's remember. Let's think about that. Where that tomato started. Remember going back to the Americas, right? Isn't it funny that we think about Italian cuisine and we associate it with tomatoes, right? Tiramisu. Yes, definitely sweets. What else? What do we think about? So we mostly just we've heard some cheese, bread, cheese, bread, pasta, wine, tomatoes.
Dessert.
Desserts.
Bread.
Bread. Ravioli. All right. But outside of the pasta world, what else? Do they eat vegetables? Do they eat meat? Do they eat fish? Right? Yep. Grapes. Okay.
Salami.
Sausage.
Salamis, cured meats. Good job. Yes. What else? What else?
Charcuterie boards, bechamel sauce.
Pepperoni. Sausage.
Yes. All right. We're starting to think, right? Keep thinking outside of the box, right? When we look at Italian American cuisine, now let's focus. Let's pull that back. What do we think about Italian American cuisine? Right? Lasagna, right? Big old fat meatballs, huh? Meatball subs, mozzarella, right? Prosciutto. What else? What else do we think? Pasta bakes, right? Cheese. What else? What about chicken parmigiana, eggplant parmesan?
Chicken marsala, chicken franchise.
All right, now we're starting to think, right? What about fish
Piccata.
production?
Fish or chicken piccata.
Okay, piccata, great.
Chicken tetrazzini.
Tetrazzini, okay. Arrabbiata, right? Start thinking about when you go to your favorite Italian, restaurant. Nobody, I didn't hear anybody say Alfredo.
Bruschetta.
Carbonara.
The Italian butter.
Eggplant parmesan.
Eggplant parmesan,
Stuffed shells.
stuffed shells. Okay.
Penne alla vodka.
What type? Oh, panela vodka. What type of cheese is getting stuffed in that in those shells? What type of cheese?
Parmesan.
I've had gorgonzola.
Ricotta, mascarpone.
I hear mascarpone.
Asiago.
Gorgonzola. Did somebody say ricotta?
Ricotta.
Gary's screaming it from the other side. Ricotta, right?
I've also had it filled with
Ricotta mixed with sour cream.
Okay, so sour cream. So now we start thinking about, right? We're thinking about Italian American cuisine, right? We're talking about taking Americanized dairy products to execute dishes from the motherland, right? All right. When we think about meat consumption, do we think prior that they were that they ate a lot of meat every day in Italy? What do you guys think? Do you think there's a lot of meat every day consumed in Italy?
I think they ate a lot of pasta.
I feel like they less meat.
Less meat. All right. So what happened was when meat's expensive, right? We live in a very different day where industrial meat and chicken products are quite affordable, especially in America. When leaving from Italy, right, the Italian immigration that came in, they were exposed to really affordable meat. So meat started becoming incorporated into a lot more dishes. Okay, so that's why we see a lot of meat-heavy dishes in Italian American cuisine. All right, so when we really think about Italian cuisine, it's not that meat-heavy. What else do we? You guys are going to talk about this in Farm to Table next class. But I'm a huge proponent of farm to table. I worked on a lot of farms. I'm going to show you some photos of that later, specifically in Italy and Spain. And guess what? You might eat meat once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks for a barbecue on the weekend when somebody nearby has slaughtered a lamb, right? Or goat, right? Meat is not common. You're getting a lot of that protein and you're getting a lot of vegetables, okay? Italy is also known a huge, huge foraging country. Does anybody know what the term forage means? It's okay if you don't, and that's okay to take a guess.
Say that again.
The word forage, to go foraging.
It must be
To go out into the wilderness and get the food.
Yes. Yeah, to go out into the wilderness to find what's growing there, right? What do we know that's out in the wild? Where do mushrooms grow?
In the ground.
In where?
They grow above the ground.
Yes, above the ground in the forest. All right. Mushrooms are in the forest or on cow dung, right? But oftentimes in forests. All right. We're going to talk about truffles as well, which is a form of a growth, right? Of a really most, it's not quite a mushroom. It is its own beast, but highly, highly sought after. Okay.
Yeah, people kill for that.
Yeah, pigs actually go hunting for this. Okay, they have pigs that are trained sniffing out truffles. Okay, what other things do we think we might find while out foraging in the wild? Or what do we think we come across? What type of trees are there? Fruit trees? Apples? Pears?
Berries.
Berries, yep, raspberries. Berries are going to be growing. Nut trees, right? Almond trees, right? Hazelnut trees, walnut trees. What about different herbs? Does anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, they got the different type of spices.
Spices.
Oregano.
Yeah. Okay, great. Herbs. Yeah. So we can start thinking about herbs, right? Some herbs are going to grow in the wild, just out there. Rosemary. Rosemary is going to grow in different soils. Mint. Thyme. Okay, right? Nettle. Nettle is an extremely important ingredient in Italian cuisine. Stinging nettle. Okay. I'm going to show you a photo of that. Yep, I got you, Robert. Let me pull it up right now and show you what nettle looks like. Nettle is a green herb that is foraged in the wild, and you can come across it not only in Italy, but in parts of the Americas as well. Grows in, let me just share my screen really quickly so we can pull this up. It's called stinging nettle. Because it stings, you have to be careful when you are foraging for this, because otherwise you will come out with a big rash. Little spikes are going to get you. But nettle is beautiful to be put into different pasta sauces or egg souffles, right? Frittatas.
In my country, we call that stinging nettle.
Stinging nettle. Yep, exactly. Stinging nettle. That is what it's called. And it will get you, right? It burns. You want to go with gloves. And you know when you find a patch because you're going to feel it. Okay.
Itching.
Highly nutritious and wonderful. Lots of health benefits. But again, this is something that you're going to forage for.
It sounds like poison ivy to me.
Oh, you can eat this. This is not like poison ivy. Don't worry. But it is going to, it won't burn like poison ivy, but it's going to.
French thyme.
Yes. Okay. Ramona, we'll talk to you about truffles in a little while. But what I'm getting at is that in Italian cuisine and a lot of places in Europe, just like many places around the world, there's a lot of foraging and using what's naturally around in your area to form the base of your cuisine. Okay. So if we're in a mountainous area, certain things are going to grow. If we're in a cold area versus a hot area, there's going to be different products growing, right? We're going to have different animals. And like, remember what Chef Jerry was talking about last week about what animals are going to be living up in the Andes? Are those little oinkers? Are those piggies walking around in the big mountain? No. Are cows hiking up huge mountains? No. Cows need flat land, right? Grazing. Goats, on the other hand, those little suckers are hopping around, right? They can climb up the mountains. So you're going to find goats and certain animals in certain mountainous regions. You're going to find wild boars, right, in forests. You're going to find cows in other areas, just like the sea. All right, I'm going to pull in right now. I want to focus in on Italy in the map so we get an area, an idea of the layout of where we're located geographically to see the influences that are going to be shared. All right, and this is a word that you're going to hear a lot that I like to talk about. It's called terroir. Terroir. I will put that in the chat right now. Terroir, okay? Terroir is oftentimes used in relation to wine growing regions, right? We know that wine grows all over Europe, especially in Italy and France. And those slight differences in the grapes and grape varietals that grow there are based on the terroir. Terroir means essentially the terrain, okay? It is the soil. Right? We know that certain plants grow better in sandy soil versus rocky soil versus dense soil. Okay. Right. So you're going to see that this terroir has a big influence on the products and animals that grow and live there. Terroir is not just the soil, but the climate, the raining season, the sun. Is it next to the sea? So you're getting a lot of sea salt bringing in. Okay. Right, terroir. All right, this influence, elevation and temperature, right? This influences the foods and vegetables that will grow in that region, the terroir. All right, so let's pull up the map of Italy so we get this base going. And we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about because cuisine is incredible. All right, I've got all these maps going on. Got to get my stuff sorted. And we are back in. All right, I always just like to use Google Maps. You guys ever, are confused about where you're located? Google Maps does a great job. You know why? Because it's going to give you an idea of what's going on in this area. Okay. So here we are in Italy, all right? The boot, all right, known as the boot. You've got the heel here. You've got the tip of the boot. And this is the high boot that's going all the way up here. Now, as you can see, Italy borders France, okay? Switzerland, Austria, Slovenia, all right? You also have Sicily down here and Sardinia, all right, over here. Now, you've got the Tyrrhenian Sea, right? The Mediterranean Sea. And what's right across the border here? We've got Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, right? Pretty close, pretty nearby. What's this huge continent down here? We've got Africa, right? We've got Spain. So there's going to be a lot of trade going in all here, right? What's right next to Italy is Greece, right? Greece is just hopping down there, right? Spain, you pull out a little bit and you're going to start to see, remember, people were traveling, whether by ship or sea, but Africa is right here. Africa is so close to Italy, right there. So there's going to be a huge influence of African and Arab influence here coming in and upwards, right? And it's going to be hotter down here than it is up here, up north, where it's mountainous and near France and Austria, right? Oopsies, got a little close there. So Sardinia is, has more of an Italian influence, while Corsica is French and has French influence, all right? But as we can see, we've got Sicily down here, and you've got some main ports, Naples, right? Napoli, Bari. You've got Firenze up here, Rome, okay? Bologna. What does this word look like? What does it, I mean, Bologna is how we say it in Italian. Bologna, bingo, Deborah, right? So what do we think maybe is coming from that region? Cured meats, processed meats, salamis, right? Even the word salami, okay? Venice, we know Venice was a huge port for spices, right? Remember, ships are coming in. There's also all the spices coming in, huge amount of trade, people, right? How do we think we got all that tomato sauce into the Italian cuisine? What about potatoes? What about chilies? We know we just talked about this last week. Chilies, potatoes, tomatoes. Where are those
Rice.
coming from? Yep, rice. Rice is going to be a very unique topic that we're going to talk about, because rice is one of those wild grains that grows almost everywhere in different varietals, right? That you all made risotto, right? Already in a previous course? All right. You know, you use a short fat grain, either carnaroli or arborio. It's not going to work with a long grain rice, right? It has more starch. Okay. So you start thinking about this. We are also going to be cooking polenta. Chef Jerry just went over this. Here, I'm going to pull up the section of regions right now for another visual aid. What is polenta made out of?
Wheat.
Cornmeal?
Corn. Where did
Corn.
corn come from? So now we've got these, right? Central and South America, Mexico, right? The Americas, that's where corn's growing. And yet we're eating a lot of polenta up here. So we know that cuisines are influenced by immigration, by people moving, by people taking their foods and cuisines and taking different spices and bringing that, incorporating it into a new, to create a new diet, right? A new form of cuisine. So in the North, we have a very different flavor base. You're gonna see a lot more dairy utilized in the northern regions, okay? First and foremost, blanket statement, wine is pretty much growing everywhere, okay? Some beautiful specific regions, you know, Piemonte has some of the most famous wines from Asti, Alba, Spumante region, okay? Veneto also, and Venezia, Friuli, beautiful white wines coming from this region. Very close to Austria. Austrian has beautiful white wines. Piemonte, we've got larger, full-bodied red wines. Remember, this is where France is gonna be. So we've got a lot of that French connection here, right? Big, bold red wines, France. The Austrian lighter white wines influence over here. You know what's something that I want to talk about? What else do we think about when we think about Italian cuisine? It's one of those main ingredients. We're gonna be using it in their focaccia. We use it everywhere. It's really good. Olive oil, right? Olive oil is huge. What do we know about the differences between olive oil? Does anybody notice any difference? Color, flavor?
Extra virgin.
Extra virgin. Yep. What else?
It has a distinct taste.
There's a lot of brands.
A lot of brands, a lot of variety versions of it. Dark green to light yellow. You've got higher cooking temps, extra virgin, lower temp cooking temps, right? Some olive oils are going to be used for dressings. You don't want to cook with them, right? Extra virgins, first press. You don't want to be cooking with those. They're really delicate. They have a low smoking point. Ones that have been blended, lighter color, higher smoking point. They don't have as much a pronounced flavor, right? And where are all these coming? What is olive oil coming from?
Olives.
Olives. Yeah. How do we get that? How do we get oil out of olives?
You got to mash them or something. I don't know the terminology.
Great. Yeah. Right. Pressed. Remember, we think about that first.
Yeah, that's
press,
it.
right? So we're going to be crushing this in order to
anointing oil.
There is anointing oil. It's a different oil, but yep. So we've got a lot of different types of levels of oil. We're going to talk about this more in the study hall section, but we're going to go into a little bit about Parmesan cheese as well as olive oil and food fraud. Okay, yeah, food fraud. Is that, yeah, Darian, all right, not joking. Is that olive oil that you're purchasing really olive oil? Is that Parmesan cheese classified as Parmesan cheese?
Probably not.
Right, all right. We've got very specific regions, okay? DOP. Have you ever seen specific AOC, DOP? These are government protected regions where only certain products can be grown and created. Okay, for example, Parmigiano di Reggiano, right? Parmesan cheese. To technically have the list of Parmesan cheese, it has to be aged for X amount of time. I believe it's, is it 18, minimum of 12 months? Is that right, Chef Jerry? I believe so. And come from cows in that region. Okay, so I'm gonna keep talking for a few minutes before we go into study hall, but there is so much history here, all right? Each region is gonna have its own influence, right? Different types of pasta shapes, okay? Flavor profiles. We're gonna talk about more about pasta cookery in the study hall as well. Let's just, I'm gonna stop this right now and then we'll hop right into the study hall so we don't lose momentum, all right, class? We've got a lot more to learn. So hold your horses and we'll be right back in it.